In order to talk about 3-point editing, I'm going to start by talking about 4-point editing. And these concepts are really just names of things that you're basically doing already if you're doing any editing. It's just a way of thinking about the editing you're doing. But if you can understand why the software is responding the way it is based on what you're doing, it will help you edit a whole lot more effectively. The idea is this. When you are creating an edit, any edit, you're essentially, there are 4 pieces of information that you need to think about. The first is where in the project you want your edit to go. So for example, let's say I want to cover up this little section, this little camera move, right? So I've got a close-up of the guy writing, and then I've got a pan up to his face, and then I've got a close-up of his face. Maybe I don't want to see that camera move. I'd rather use that time to cut away to the person he's talking to, this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that shot of this guy and put it to cover up this section where the camera is tilting up. So there's 2 points there in the sequence, in the project that I'm defining. There's where the beginning of that camera move is, and I'm going to identify that by pressing the I key to set an in point. And then I'm going to go forward to the camera move stops right around there and press O to set an out point. Now what I've done is I've identified this range of time in my project that I want to cover up, that I want to overwrite. And well, what do I want to overwrite it with? Well, there's this shot I've loaded up here into the browser, and this shot here is this close-up shot of the guy who he's talking to. And so I've defined an in point and an out point up here in the browser area too. So what I've got now is I've got 4 points. I have an in point and an out point in the browser, so covering the range of time of the shot I want to use. And I also have the in point and the out point here in the project, defining the place that I want to replace or overwrite. And so these are the 4 points, the in point, the out point down here, and then the in point and the out point up here. And this is called 4 points because you think of these as in points and out points. But the truth is, in Final Cut Pro 10, they've really done away with these in point, out point terms for better and worse as far as I'm concerned. But they just call this selection in and selection out. And you can't actually have a selection in without a selection out, which is kind of weird. As you notice down here in the timeline, if I clear that, when I added an in point, it automatically added an end point at a totally arbitrary place, the end of that clip in the timeline, which is totally irrelevant based on what I'm working on. So I find that a little bothersome, and I think it's confusing. But if you can ignore it, you can keep working and basically just pretend you haven't seen that and set your own out point manually. So I'm going to go forward and find the place where that camera move stops, press the O key, and now I've identified the range that I want. But so here what I have now is I've got this in and out up here in the source and an in and out down here. And well, now with these 4 points, we create a problem because the section I've selected in the timeline is, as you see down here, only 2 seconds long. And the clip that we've identified up here in the browser is 6 seconds long. So how do we fit 6 seconds into 2 seconds? So you probably remember when we were just doing the replace editing, you can actually do special replaces, which will keep the duration in here and decide which part of the clip you want to use up here. And that is basically the idea that we're going to be doing, but you can't replace just a portion of a clip. The replace only works on whole clips. So I would need to break this clip up into pieces, and that's a bunch of extra steps. So what I'm going to show you is some shortcuts, and really not even shortcuts, just basic ways of editing to make use of these 4 points and to get exactly the results you want every time.